guys, I'm here to talk to you quick about supplementation that I do for my flock in the winter and year-round, and what I do to supplement them in general. So here goes. First, I do feed my birds twice a day. I use a all-purpose layer feed, so I use it for obviously chickens and for ducks, but it's not waterfowl specific. So I will get into that later, what I add for the ducks for this time of year especially. I do feed them 2 times a day. I do traditionally soak their grain in a bucket like this. I soak it because you can get more out of your feed if you soak it. I soak it to make it more digestible. I also soak it to make it easier to mix all the supplements together and just kind of melt it all together nicely so everything's equally and evenly distributed and they can get the most out of the supplementation. If it's really cold out and the soaked feed freezes when we get cold snaps, which I've been pretty lucky with that, but if it has happened, and I just do dry feed in those cases. But other than that, traditionally, I do soak my feed. If you want a video about how much I feed my birds and how I measure all that out for the flock, let me know. Okay, as far as my year-round supplements, first I have 2 supplements that are free choice, which means it's out in the coop at all times. I do Sea Kelp and calcium. The calcium, like the oyster shell, you can get in a big bag, I think for like $16, and for me it lasts me a whole year. You can also crush up their eggshells and feed them back to them, which I was doing for a while in the beginning, but I found it made them want to also eat their eggs. So I stopped doing that. $16 for a bag that lasts me a year. I just roll with that. And again, I just make sure that's out in their free choice. I have a little container that has a 2-sided supplement. So they get that, the calcium, and the sea kelp. As far as year-round in their grain, I supplement once a day. It happens to be for me in the AM. I soak the feed the night before with all their supplements and I feed it to them in the AM. So once a day I do a couple drops of oregano oil, like 3 drops for the whole shebang. This is very potent, but it's supposed to be a natural antibiotic. And why do I need to do that? Because boy, I've had a lot of duck foot injuries and infections. And when you go in, I have treated several ducks with amoxicillin is a hardcore antibiotic, and they have an egg withdrawal period, which means when you're feeding it to them, you can't eat their eggs, and after they're done with their bout of amoxicillin, you can't eat the eggs for like 7 to 14 days after, and you have to quarantine them because you don't know which egg is which, and it's a real pain in the butt. So this is my prevention for that. If your ducks are walking around, they get foot injuries easily. They get splinters, they have a lot of weight on their foot, and it's something you should do periodically, is always check your duck's feet and make sure they don't have any infections starting or any of that. But yes, this is my preventative measure for that. Seems to be working well. Again, if you watched my last video, I currently have a chicken that got attacked by an owl, and this is in her system right now. I noticed that the cut, it's pretty bad, but it looks really good, and there's no infection starting, and that's huge. That's really huge. So, and then in the growing months, I have oregano. I have actual oregano that you can sprinkle in their grain or throw out into the coop in the nesting boxes. It's supposed to be Lisa Steele. She's the chicken lady. She knows all this stuff about what the herbs do, but it's good for them. Oregano is good for your flock. So I have that. Premium quality, 100% pure and natural essential oil. The kelp. I mentioned earlier that I do the sea kelp in, free choice all the time, but I also do, once a day I'll put about a tablespoon into their grain and mix that into the mix. Kelp is supposed to be loaded with iodine and minerals and trace minerals and all the little stuff that they don't get, especially they don't get when they're not living off of the land like I have them in the growing months. It's supposed to be good for egg production. I actually have my dog on this too for iodine and just good minerals. It's a good livestock. A lot of farmers use this for livestock and chickens, humans. all the stuff. I buy this in a 50-pound bag, and it literally lasts me almost 3 years. So that's why I have it in this fancy container you see here. So there's kelp, apple cider vinegar, we all know, or maybe we don't. If you don't, this stuff is all-around health boost, immunity boost. They get this year-round, and then I'll get into, they get this extra in the winter via the magic water, which I touched on again in the last video, but this stuff's great. I do about, I don't know, I do a splash of it, maybe 2 tablespoons, 2 to 3 tablespoons, just a slug of that into their grain, and that's important. So those are my year-round things. What I add in the winter, this is new. This is the first year I'm doing this. This is Lisa Steele, she's the chicken lady. This is a probiotic for laying chickens and ducks, and I'm just doing this as an extra immunity boost. I'm trying it this winter. It's supposed to be good for egg production and health of the eggs, health of the chickens, all the good stuff. And I like her, I trust her, and I'm supporting her by supporting my ducks. And so far, everything's going great. Brewer's yeast. This is what I was going to get into about waterfowl. If you don't know what waterfowl is, that's my ducks and the goose. Birds of the water. Brewer's yeast. You can also use nutritional yeast, but brewer's yeast has more niacin, the mineral that ducks and geese, waterfowl in general, and especially baby ducklings need in their feed. They get enough of this off the land, off the grass, from the grass, the bugs and stuff, and the greens in the growing months. But in the winter, yes, I absolutely have them with this. And that's because, also remember, I do not have a waterfowl specific laying feed. I have a feed that's good, mostly it's geared towards chickens and laying in general, but it's lacking niacin that you would need for a waterfowl. So if you do have a waterfowl specific feed, you should be all set to go. It should have plenty of this in there. I don't, so I add this in. And again, I will mention, if you are growing ducklings or goslings and you don't have a waterfowl specific feed, add this in there. It's very important. They can have leg problems, and they just grow so rapidly that this is the nutrient that they need specifically for waterfowl. I'm very passionate about that because I really care about my ducks. Okay, and then there's magic water. Ta-da! I have had plenty of experiences, especially with chickens. But always if I have a chicken in my garage now, again, last video, keep up with me, will ya? I have plenty of chickens, for example, that get sick. If you know what a sick chicken looks like, they're kind of hunched over and gloomy, and they're not very responsive to you being out there or whatever. I've given them magic water. I've just put it out in the coop, or you can just syringe it to them specifically. But anyways, I've seen a chicken turn around in a day or two just from magic water. So I've experienced it. I highly suggest using it, especially if you have a bird that's in your garage, separate, and you're trying to get well. But I do also do this every other week in the winter. I make their waterer with magic water. And this is 7 gallons. So I don't think there's any real exact, you might be able to Google it, or DuckDuckGo it, if there's any real exactness that you need, because I just put, I'll put maybe a slug, so call it a 1/4 cup apple cider vinegar, a heaping spoonful of the honey, and you'll need cloves of garlic. Just kind of, you don't even have to mince them, you can just crush them up and throw it in there, or you can use the pre-minced garlic, which I use, but I think you get better benefits if you use actual garlic, so just better to go with that. And the trick to that is you put those in there, honey, apple cider vinegar, and garlic. Put that in first, add hot water to it, and just a little bit, maybe a couple cups of hot water to it first, and mix that around with a big spoon or a little spoon, or just do one of these, because that'll dissolve the honey. And then after you dissolve the honey, fill the rest up with the cold water, and you're good to go. And again, I do this every 2 weeks throughout the winter just for precautions. I just find the more and more I learn about my flock and my birds, the more preventative maintenance that I do with that. The same goes for owning old vehicles, oddly enough. So that's it, guys. That's what I've got. That's my winter supplementation and the supplements I do in general. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks. Alright, here's my chicken from the other day. Again, the last video. Look at her head's up, her neck's up. She looks like a normal chicken. She's doing great. She's eating and drinking on her own. Can you hear the excitement in my voice? But it is very exciting. I've been giving her that baby aspirin every 12 hours for the pain for now. At this point, it's just going to be tending to her wounds for a while. She's a little bruised still, but I'll tend to her wounds for a while I still have easy access to her in the crate, and just get her all healed up before I put her out with the flock. Thanks, guys.